Cameron had always been a morning person, even if he didn't want to admit it out loud. There was something about the quiet before the world woke up that gave him space to breathe. Most mornings, he'd sit at the kitchen table with a half-eaten banana, scrolling through his phone, with one sock on and the other forgotten somewhere in his room. His mom's voice would echo from down the hall. "Cam, don't miss the bus again." And he'd yell back with the confidence of someone who always did. He lived in a small town where the air smelled like cut grass and distant truck exhaust. The kind of town that made national news only when someone's cow escaped or when the football team made it to state. The kind of town that said, "We're one big family," until something cracked. At school, Cameron wasn't popular, but he wasn't invisible either. He floated. That was the best word for it. He had his people, Malik, Zoe, and Josh. They sat together at lunch, cracked jokes during history, shared playlists, and talked about nothing for hours. Exactly the kind of friendship that felt unshakable when you were 15. That Monday had started like any other. Gray skies, the threat of rain. Cameron had barely finished brushing his teeth when the news flashed on the kitchen TV. Something about a lockdown at a school 3 towns over. His mom turned it off before he could hear more. "You don't need that in your head before school," she said, trying to smile. "Focus on your quiz." He didn't argue. He never did. On the bus, Malik played something loud enough that the whole back row could hear it. Some rapper yelling about survival and hunger and trust. Zoe rolled her eyes, but nodded to the beat. Josh looked out the window, like he always did. When they got to school, everything felt off. Not wrong, just off. A teacher Cameron didn't know stood at the entrance, arms crossed, watching everyone walk in. The metal detector beeped 3 times in a row. The principal's voice came over the loudspeaker before first period, reminding students about new safety protocols and asking for cooperation. Some kids groaned, others whispered. Cameron tried to shake it off. By third period, the unease was harder to ignore. A fight broke out in the hallway between 2 seniors. Not unusual, but the teachers were on it like a SWAT team. Zoe whispered, "They're nervous. Something's up." Cameron nodded but stayed quiet. At lunch, Malik said, "You see the new kid? Tall, quiet. He sits by himself and stares like he's watching a movie no one else can see." Zoe added, "Rumor is he got kicked out of his last school. Something bad." "People say that about every new kid," Josh muttered, still chewing. Cameron didn't say anything. He'd seen the kid. There was something in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, just silence. Like he was waiting for something to start. That afternoon, the fire alarm went off. But it wasn't a drill. The teachers didn't lead them out in lines. They locked the doors instead, pulled blinds, told students to get down. Cameron's heart thudded as he crouched beneath a desk, shoulder to shoulder with Josh. He could hear Zoe whispering prayers and Malik trying to make a joke that died halfway through. No one laughed. Then, silence. Long, terrifying, pressurized. Then, chaos. Screams, running. A sound Cameron had never heard before, sharp and cracking like fireworks. but wrong. He closed his eyes, tried not to breathe too loudly. His phone buzzed once in his pocket and he ignored it. Time bent, seconds stretched like chewing gum. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. Someone sobbed. Someone else whispered, "I think he's gone." He didn't move. When the SWAT team finally entered, Cameron thought they were part of the nightmare. It wasn't until someone grabbed his arm and said, "You're safe now," that he realized he was crying. He would later find out what happened in pieces. From news reports, from whispers, from the names announced over the intercom the next day. 2 students dead. 1 teacher. Dozens shaken. The shooter, the new kid, taken alive. Cameron would remember the blood on the hallway floor. Malik's hand gripping his for a second too long. Zoe's silence. Josh's empty seat on the bus the next morning. But most of all, he would remember the moment the siren stopped, and how everything after that felt like waking up in someone else's life. The world didn't stop for Cameron. It just got quieter. The morning after, the bus came. The street lights flickered like always. His mom knocked gently on the door and whispered his name. Like if she spoke too loudly, the truth would burst in and wreck the house. He didn't answer. She didn't ask twice. At school, grief counselors waited, like strangers at a funeral no one wanted to attend. Folding chairs in the gym. Tissues. Clipboards. Adults with soft voices asking impossible questions. "How are you feeling, Cameron? Do you want to talk about it? Would you like to write a letter to Josh's family?" He said no to all of it. Zoe didn't show up that first week. Malik did, once. They made eye contact in the hallway, both walking past the classroom where the first shots were fired. Neither spoke. Malik's eyes were glassy. He looked older. He didn't come back the next day. Everyone was quieter now. Even the lockers closed like whispers. Even the teachers who used to shout now tiptoed through their own sentences. The news vans outside the school didn't leave for days. Every time Cameron walked past the front entrance, someone tried to shove a mic in his face. He said nothing. The town held a candlelight vigil in the park. People brought flowers, sang songs, held hands. They talked about unity, healing, moving forward. Cameron didn't go. His mom tried to be gentle. She made his favorite meals: grilled cheese, chicken nuggets, mashed potatoes. She told him he didn't have to talk if he didn't want to. She turned off the news. She started walking on eggshells, like anything could crack him. But he already felt cracked. He stopped sleeping. The silence at night was too loud. Every creak in the hallway sounded like a scream about to start. He left his light on. He stared at the ceiling. He memorized the pattern of shadows the blinds made. He counted breaths. He didn't cry. Not yet. The first time he went back to that hallway, it was by accident. He turned a corner, and there it was. The caution tape. The locked door. The dark stain on the tile no one had scrubbed clean enough. His knees went soft. He backed away, like the building itself had teeth. 2 weeks later, a reporter emailed him. Then another. Then another. They all wanted the same thing. His story. In your own words, what did it feel like? Tell us what kind of person Josh was. Do you think the school could have done more? Can we interview you on camera? He deleted them all. His mom said, they're just trying to help people understand. Cameron almost laughed. What was there to understand? Josh was dead. A boy they barely knew pulled the trigger. The rest of them were left walking through broken glass. He wanted to take the grade and shove it in her face and ask if she could do better after watching her friends bleed. But he didn't. He folded the paper. He walked home in silence. He tore it into tiny pieces that night and flushed them down the toilet. He missed Josh most in the small moments, when a joke would float through his mind and he'd turn to say it and the seat was empty. When someone said something dumb in class and he waited for Josh's snort. But it never came. When Malik texted him a meme late one night and Cameron stared at it, fingers hovering over the keyboard, wondering what was even left to laugh about. Zoe didn't text at all. Not once. Cameron wondered if she blamed him. One afternoon, his mom found him sitting on the bathroom floor, fully dressed, just sitting. She didn't say anything. She sat with him for an hour. And she finally spoke. She said, "You don't have to be okay, but you do have to keep breathing." He nodded. That night, he dreamed of fire alarms, of running, of red lockers smeared with something dark. He woke up screaming. His mom held him until the shaking stopped. She didn't ask what it was about. She didn't need to. On the 1-month anniversary, the school held a ceremony. They played videos, read poems. Zoe spoke. Cameron couldn't believe it. Her voice was steady. Her words were sharp. She didn't cry. Afterward, he waited for her in the hallway. She saw him. Her eyes flicked toward him, then away. He said, "Hey." She said, "Hey." Silence stretched. "I liked what you said," he offered. She looked at him. Her voice was quiet. "You didn't even come to the funeral." Cameron's mouth opened, closed. He had no answer. Zoe shook her head. "Josh loved you, you know. Like really loved you. You were his best friend." "I know." "Then where were you?" He wanted to say, "I was trying not to drown." He wanted to say, "I was scared." He wanted to say, "I didn't know how to say goodbye." But all that came out was, "I'm sorry." Zoe didn't respond. She just walked away. That night, Cameron sat on the roof of his house. The stars were out. The wind was cold. He felt small. He pulled out his phone, opened his notes app, typed one sentence. "I wish I had hugged him that morning." He stared at it, then added, "I wish I had known it was the last one." Then another. "I keep hearing the siren in my dreams." Then, "Is it wrong that I'm still alive?" He didn't send it. He just saved it. Cameron sat in the back of the classroom, 3 rows from the window, where the sun spilled in like it didn't care who had died in this room. The seat in front of him remained empty. No one said anything about it anymore. But everyone knew. He wasn't taking notes. He didn't care about quadratic equations. He stared at the pencil in his hand like it was supposed to mean something. Maybe it once had. The teacher's voice faded in and out, not because she was quiet, but because Cameron's ears only picked up pieces of the world now, like someone had turned the volume down on life. "Cam," someone whispered beside him. He blinked, turned. It was Nina. Quiet, observant Nina, who used to sit near the front and always had colored gel pens. She hadn't spoken to him since the shooting. Maybe she hadn't spoken to anyone. She passed him a note. He hesitated before unfolding it. "There's a group after school. For kids like us. You should come." He didn't look at her. He didn't nod. He just folded the paper again, like it might fall apart in his hands. That afternoon, he walked past the counseling office twice before going in. The lights were dimmed. There was a circle of chairs, tissues, a bowl of peppermints. A woman with silver hair and warm eyes sat cross-legged at the front, no clipboard in sight. She smiled. "Hi, Cameron. I'm Lisa." There were 4 other students already there. Nina was one of them. Malik, too. He looked surprised to see Cameron, but not mad. Just surprised, like he wasn't sure if he was dreaming. Cameron sat down without speaking. Lisa gestured gently. "We don't force anyone to talk, but we listen when they do." For the first 30 minutes, he stayed quiet. He listened to Malik talk about how he couldn't go near loud noises anymore. How his little brother dropped a toy car, and he flinched so hard he knocked over a chair. Nina said she kept hearing footsteps at night that weren't there. One boy said he didn't remember anything at all, just the sound of his own heartbeat, and then nothing. Cameron wanted to speak. His mouth didn't cooperate. Then Lisa said, "Grief rewrites your insides. It makes your skin fit differently. You're not broken. You're just becoming someone new." That sentence wrapped around him like a blanket he didn't know he needed. The 3rd time he came to group, he finally spoke. "I keep seeing his face," Cameron said. Everyone went still. "I wake up and it's there. Not Josh. The other one. The one with the gun. I don't even remember his name, but I see his face clearer than I see my own." No one interrupted. "And the worst part," he continued, "is I keep wondering if I could have stopped him. Like, I don't know, said something, done something, smiled at him once." Lisa nodded slowly. "You're not alone in that thought. But you didn't create his pain, and you didn't pull the trigger." Cameron lowered his head. The weight in his chest was still there, but for the first time, it wasn't growing. That week, Zoe texted him. "I heard you've been going to the group." He stared at the message for 10 full minutes, then replied, "Yeah." She wrote back, "Good." Then nothing. But the conversation, short as it was, felt like a small door cracking open. One morning, Cameron stood in front of the mirror and looked at himself properly for the first time in weeks. His eyes had shadows beneath them. His hair was messy, but there was something else. A flicker. Maybe strength. Maybe exhaustion. He couldn't tell. He walked into school that day with both earbuds in, but no music playing. Just a barrier, a buffer between him and everything too loud. At lunch, he sat alone. But people glanced his way differently now. Not pitying, just softer. He was still invisible, but less. A new student joined group the next day, a girl named Bria. She hadn't been in the building during the shooting. She'd been out sick, but her brother had died. "I feel like I don't have the right to be sad," she said. "I wasn't even there." Lisa shook her head. "Grief isn't a competition. It's a language, and you speak it." Cameron liked that. A language. Maybe that's what he'd been missing all along. A way to speak what he couldn't say. He began writing again. In his notes app. In a journal his mom had left on his desk without comment. One night, he even scribbled a poem. They say silence is golden, but mine is made of stone, too heavy to carry, too cold to call home. It wasn't much, but it was his. At school, someone painted a mural near the cafeteria. Silhouettes of students holding hands, surrounded by swirls of color and stars. Above it, a quote in black letters, "We carry each other." Cameron didn't know who painted it, but he stood in front of it for a long time. That evening, he sat on the front steps of his house, putty pulled tight against the wind. His mom joined him, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You're quieter these days," she said. He nodded. "But stronger," she added. He looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, he said, "Yeah, I think so." The fire alarm went off during 3rd period. For a second, Cameron's chest clenched, a full, sharp panic, like hands around his lungs, until he realized it was only a drill. Students shuffled outside in loose lines, some groaning about the cold, others laughing too loud, pretending nothing had ever happened. Cameron stood near the back, arms crossed, gaze darting around the parking lot. His muscles didn't know it was fake. Every siren, every loudspeaker crackle still felt like a countdown. "Just a drill," someone said beside him. It was Ms. Lockhart, the counselor. She'd started walking the halls more often lately, checking in on students between classes, like she was looking for cracks before they spread too far. Cameron nodded, then looked away. That night, the dreams came back. This time, he wasn't in the hallway anymore. He was in the cafeteria. Alone. Everything was frozen, mid-chaos, trays mid-air, apples hovering like planets, kids turned into statues with mouths still open in screams. He walked between them, untouched. The quiet was deafening. Then from behind, footsteps, fast, heavy. He turned, but it was just a mirror, and his reflection was smiling. He woke up gasping, sweat-soaked, and didn't go back to sleep. The next group session, he almost didn't go. He paced outside the room for 5 full minutes, his feet dragging toward the door like they weighed 100 pounds. But Lisa opened it before he knocked. "I was hoping you'd come," she said. This time, there were more people in the circle. Word had gotten around. Some looked familiar. Others didn't. One boy sat with his arms locked tight over his chest, twitching whenever someone sneezed. Lisa spoke gently. "Today, we're going to talk about what safety means. Real safety, not just mock doors and drills." Someone laughed bitterly. "That stuff doesn't mean anything." Another voice, "I can't even go into a movie theater anymore without checking the exits." Heads nodded. Cameron waited, then said, "I carry scissors in my backpack now." The words surprised even him. Malik looked over. "You serious?" Cameron shrugged. "I don't know. I just do." No one judged him. Lisa only nodded. Sometimes we try to control the uncontrollable by holding tight to whatever we can. Even scissors. That night, Zoe texted again. "Want to walk to school together tomorrow?" It took him 3 hours to answer, but he said yes. The next morning, the sky was pink-gray and too quiet. Zoe wore her hood up. She didn't ask questions, just handed him half a granola bar and said, "I figure you skipped breakfast." He hadn't even realized he had. They didn't talk much, but when May reached the front of the school, she looked at him and said, "I missed you, Cam." He didn't know what to say to that, but he wanted to cry for some reason, so he just nodded. Weeks passed. Something began to shift. Not everything. Not fast, but things changed. He went back to class. He started raising his hand again sometimes. He wrote more poems, though he still wouldn't show anyone. He went to group every week. At home, he cleaned his room, did laundry, made dinner for his mom once, burnt the rice, but she smiled anyway. He had nightmares, still, but not every night. Then one day, a substitute teacher mispronounced Josh's name during roll call. She said it like Jose, not realizing. The room froze. Cameron's throat closed. But instead of walking out like before, he raised his hand. "It's Josh," he said. "He's not here. He won't be again. But say it right." The silence afterward felt like thunder. Then the teacher apologized. The class moved on. But something cracked open in Cameron's chest. Not pain. Pride. At group the next week, he told them about it. Malik fist bumped him after. Nina smiled, wide and real. Bria said, "That's brave as hell." He felt taller walking home that day. He started volunteering in the library during lunch. At first, to avoid crowds, but then because he liked the quiet, the order. Ms. Dorsey, the librarian, showed him how to reshelve by Dewey Decimal, gave him first dibs on new arrivals. He found a book of spoken word poems, read every page in one night, dog-eared half of them, wrote 3 of his own the next day. He didn't share them yet, but he would. Someday. The mural near the cafeteria had grown. Now there were names. First names only, in gold, handwritten at the bottom. Josh's was there. So was Malik's cousin, and 2 others. Every week, someone left flowers beneath it. Sometimes, Cameron stood nearby just to watch who stopped. It felt like remembering. Like proof that they hadn't all just disappeared into statistics. One Friday, Lisa announced they'd be having a guest. A local poet. Survivor of another tragedy. Someone who now ran workshops in schools. His name was Elijah Blue. He had locks down his back, a voice like thunder and velvet, and eyes that missed nothing. He didn't say, "I know how you feel." He said, "I know how I felt, and maybe it rhymes with you." Then he performed a piece that started. "They say time heals, but mine limps. Each morning a stitch, each memory a wince." By the end, 2 students were crying. One had their head down. Cameron's heart was hammering like a drum. When Elijah asked if anyone wanted to share something, anything, no one moved. Then Cameron did. He pulled the crumpled page from his pocket, hands shaking, read. By the end, the room was silent. No one laughed. No one looked away. Elijah nodded, then said one word. More. Cameron smiled. Not big, but real. And that night, for the first time in a long time, he slept without waking once. That morning, the day everything changed, Cameron didn't wake up to his alarm. He woke up from running in his dream. All night, again and again. He didn't know what he was running from, only that if he stopped, he wouldn't wake up. Now he stood in front of the mirror. The shadows beneath his eyes felt permanent, like they'd grown into his skin. He still hadn't spoken. Nearly 2 months. Silence. At school, everything looked the same. New cameras, metal detectors, posters saying, "We're with you." Counselors no one really talked to. Cameron couldn't forget what Mia had told him that last day. You have to speak, even if your voice shakes. He hadn't. But today, they'd asked students if anyone wanted to speak at the memorial assembly. The evening of the memorial. Teachers asked if anyone wanted to say something. No one moved. Cameron raised his hand. Ms. Wilson looked surprised. "You want to speak?" He nodded. His first yes in 2 months. That night, he wrote a speech, then rewrote it 5 times. He cried, screamed into his pillow until the pain was quiet. Then he wrote again, but not what they expected. Not about heroism, not about togetherness. He wrote about silence, about how the school had become a grave, burying memories, day after day. He wrote how they'd all become targets, not when it happened, but long before, when complaints were ignored. When bullying was just part of growing up, when black boys were threats and white boys were troubled. He wrote because someone had to hear it. On the day of the assembly, Cameron stood behind the curtain. His hands shook. His heart pounded in his throat. "Cameron Brooks, 9th grade." The auditorium went still. He walked out. For a second, fear took him. Not for himself, but for the memory, for everything that might be forgotten again. He started to speak. His voice was rough, unsure, but every word struck like a hammer. "I'm not a hero. I'm a survivor. And I don't know how to live with that. But I know silence is killing us. When I said I was scared, you said I was being dramatic. When I asked you to move Evan from my class, you said he's just bad at expressing himself. Now we don't have Courtney. We don't have Jalen. We don't have Mia. And all you say is stay strong? We're not staying strong. We're breaking apart. And if you don't start listening, if you don't start changing things, the next ones could be you." The room was silent. No one even breathed. Cameron finished. "I don't want to die in school. I want to live. I want to speak. And I want to be heard." He walked off stage. No applause. After that day, things changed. Not the world. Him. 3 students he didn't know came up to him. One cried. One hugged him. He started talking again. Not all the time. Not everywhere. But sometimes. He started writing. For the school paper. His column was called "The Ones Who Stayed." He became someone who listened. And someone who was heard. 6 months later, Cameron sat in the library, looking out the window. Kids were playing outside. A basketball echoed on the pavement, sharp and clear, like it used to. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number. It rang and rang. Then, a voice, a woman's voice, tired, soft. "Hello?" He said, "It's Cameron. Mia's mom? Silence. Then, crying. No words. Just breathing. He said, I remember her every day.